pop-up show.
It's a pop-up show.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Something's happening, something going on.
TTNL back live to get it on.
$7 a month, don't need a coupon.
We worldwide, the flag's waving strong.
Surprising your patient with breaking news.
Bring a whole lot of truth, no pay-per-views.
Could be called Shane or DDB.
Just another branch on this family tree.
The tape never lies like a boy JC.
No narratives allow how we rock the beat.
Breaking news on time, now we ain't no bullets.
Jealous networks make us out to be villains.
Unbreakable truths like a man Bruce Willis.
We stand tall in the city like the Willis.
Tower, over the competition we devour.
Grants every time like the slide on Bears Hour.
Others fall asleep when the apple is bitten. We're taking out the frauds who here to Great Britain. You can't run that eye, brother, who are you shin? Patrons of the truth, this network spin.
Old man reporting live from the dungeons. We keep it real, tears from chopping onions. Bears Nation on the rise, be on the coverage. Hot off the press, hot fresh out the oven. It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
The pop-up.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop.
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
What?
It's the pop-up show.
Pop, pop, pop.
It's the pop-up show.
TTNL.
Hey, it's a pop-up show. The Bears.
Hey, I know these guys.
The sickness that never goes away, Cars. No matter what this team does, we always show up, and they never reciprocate.
It's true, sadly.
Yeah, end of season presser, man. I know talked to Phil a little bit. He's all fired up, but he's at work. Can't be here, but I threw you a text, and you were able to come on, and we wanted to be able to pop in here for you guys and react to what we saw, what we heard. I know a lot of people were upset with, Ryan Poles and his reactions in the presser. He's always struggled in pressers. That's the reaction I don't understand from people. Was he just all of a sudden going to get amazing at it? No, this is who Ryan Poles is in front of
He was
media.
better. He was
in spots.
better.
Yeah, there was some that made me hit the pause button kind of quick, but yeah, it is what it is. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to bring it up. We're going to play it for those of you that may have not seen it or whatever, and we will listen to what he says, and we're going to react, maybe hit pause here a couple of times.
Before you do, Shane,
Yeah.
my first initial takeaway was I thought it was great to a degree that Kevin Warren wasn't there because of the way he
Agreed.
took over.
Yep.
But I also have a different view of it as well, which is like he was there to take the kudos
Sure.
for finally firing Flus. And
Yep.
now that there was time, we knew that this was going to be more of an attack. And now that the times got rough, Kevin Warren's like, no, man, you go handle this. You've got this. It came across
Yep.
a little cowardly lion to me.
Yep.
And maybe
But-
that's just cynical because I don't trust this franchise anymore.
No, I'm right there with you, man. But the thing about it is, I honestly have no issue with them handling it that way because, listen, they're staying with Ryan Poles. He's going to be here, and guess what? He needs to. Ryan Poles has been here longer than Kevin Warren. Ryan Poles needs to take the bullets. The radar is locked on his forehead because guess what? He's next in the firing line.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
no
He's
doubt
got it.
about it.
I don't know if you took away anything, but I don't think he's got an extension. It does not sound like it.
Initially, his reaction, I thought he did. And I was in a text thread with Phil and Cap kind of thought the same thing initially, just listening to it. But then as we get into this and go along and bring up
A year is a long
Kevin
time.
Warren, yeah, we will hear what he has to say. But let's get this rolling for you guys. And we'll have our reactions.
All right, good morning. We'll get started here. So first, I want to thank our players for their time and their energy this year. I want to thank our support staff and our coaches for preparing our players week in and week out. I want to take a moment to thank Thomas Brown. Was put in a really tough situation, was given a lot of responsibility as the season went along.
To be honest,
By
And
you.
I thought he handled it with poise, with command. I thought he did a great job leading. Just watching him inside the team meeting room, seeing him address the team, I thought he did a great job bringing accountability to the forefront, being a truth teller.
Those are the things that
was really
drive
important
me
at that
nuts,
time.
because he
Can you
said
have
the
me
same.
pause?
I want to thank our
Yeah, hit
fans
pause there for a
for
second.
their support and their patience.
I mean,
I understand their frustrations.
Because he did say that a little bit about Flus, and then later on you'll see that he's taken those shots again.
right.
But it does the first thing it does is this isn't a new thing this year. He
No.
hadn't taken accountability, and he really blamed the players. Flus blamed the players
Hmm.
until when? Just after the Hail Mary, right? And
Right.
even at the Hail Mary, he blamed the players first. And so accountability, yeah. So first off, I agree with him that Thomas Brown brought more accountability, but you can't, you know, that's like saying all I do is win, and then you go lose 7 games in a row, right? Like it's
Exactly.
just
And this has been Carr's. He says it himself that there was things that started in in training camp, and Dan Weeder ends up calling him out, and I'll hit play here, but
oh,
just it's they thought in true Chicago Bears fashion, just like in 2018, all we need is a kicker. All we need is a kicker, and we're going to the Super Bowl. And it was the same thing. And not that I'm against Torrey Taylor, Karan Amagaji's story has not been written yet, Cars, but it just goes back to
no, you're right.
we're gonna do this, and this is all we need, and it just shows how fundamentally flawed the entire organization is. And you can see it. I think you see it in Ryan Pohl's face right there. He's not a confident man at all.
No.
At
No,
all.
this rocked him to his core. He had an expectation of making a leap, and
It blew up in his
it's
face.
well, it's kind of like us as Bears fans, right? We get to the end of a shitty bad season, and then I'm as guilty as anyone. You start to overrate and overvalue some of our players. Tevin Jenkins is a perennial Pro Bowler at left guard, right? Braxton Jones for me was an ascending left tackle. Like you start to overrate our roster, especially as it compares to others. And then we have the season, and then in 2 or 3 months, we're all gonna start doing the same thing again. Like, oh, this is the team. Except we're not paid to do it. He is, and he
Right.
was making the same thing, doing the same dumb stuff that we were.
Yep. Totally agree. So here we go.
Just with where the team is right now. And they have my word. I'm doing everything I can, and we are as an entire group.
We thought
to get
that
this
last
thing
year.
back on track.
Don't want to hear
and
it.
headed in the direction it
Empty
needs
words
to be,
to
and they
me
can
right
take
now.
pride in their team. Want to give a special shout out to Jalen Johnson for making Pro Bowl for the second year. That's no surprise from anyone in our building. His preparation, his detail, his process is always on point, and that's allowed him to be successful and consistent. In terms of injuries, some of the long-term ones with surgery, Braxton just got out of surgery a couple of days ago with his ankle, and he's healing up. Billings got his
He's ready
pec
to be a
repaired.
backup,
He is
hopefully.
out of the sling already and getting stronger, which is no surprise.
Hopefully, Larry
And
Bourne
Jalen
was already
Jones
cut.
also had a shoulder operation as well. In terms of the concussion guys, Brisker and Bates, they're feeling back to themselves. And I got faith in all those guys that they're going to be back ready to help us next year.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific timetable.
We don't have faith in you.
In terms of their return, but they're heading
You
in the right
can't have
direction.
faith in
In terms
Brisker after a
of
12-game
UFAs,
concussion
we
miss.
have just a few of them in terms of our starters. And we have a couple guys that definitely will be up for some type of extension this offseason. But I think it's really important
Just say
to wait
Kyler
for
Gordon's
coaching
name.
staff to be in the
That's who it
building,
is.
because we want to make sure we have that alignment with vision, fit, and role as we move forward. Looking back at the season,
He's preparing for Jason Leisure.
not happy
right
with
there.
the results.
Taking that drink.
It's been a long season
Leader as
where
well. He knows.
those Mondays have been really, really difficult because we continue to come up short. And I have to take responsibility as the leader of the football operation for that. And I also have to make sure that we find solutions to make sure that we don't make that mistake again and we can continue to improve. I think anytime you have struggle, but I also think when you have success too, it's important to listen, reflect, learn, and adjust to make sure that you're putting yourself in a good position. I also think part of that is taking a look in the mirror to make sure that, just in terms
Should
of
repeat
myself
that
as a
to your
leader,
owner.
I'm doing everything that I can to help our football team. After spending time going through the exit process with our players yesterday, reflecting and taking time to look back, one of the things that popped out, and I think it was a common theme, is I think we have to change back to our process over outcome. I think this year, with the excitement of the season, it was very much outcome over process. Winning.
You've never had the outcome.
All of those things,
ever
which goals are fine.
under you.
You never want to back down from
Why
that.
would you ever put that over process
But the
at any
detail,
point?
the
You
accountability,
don't deserve to.
the competitive
I took
poise in critical
process
situations, finding
every
a
time
edge
over
in
outcomes. We
games,
did the right
is something
things,
that we came up short with.
but
I think
never
as a
showed.
front
Just like,
office,
just
we gotta
aside, have
continue
we won
to
enough?
add talent to
Have
this
we gotten the
roster.
quarterback
We
position
have
right?
to make sure
No,
that
but everything
the
else we've
players
done
we
right.
bring into this
That's what
building
that is.
also fit the culture that we want, so we can continue to make strides forward.
Behold,
Disney
Oh,
Plus,
boy.
Hulu, and Max.
this is so cool.
It's just the beginning. The ultimate bundle for an unbelievable.
Let me skip that.
So I'm disappointed, just like our fans are, but I'm not discouraged. I believe we have a strong core of players that we're going to connect to the right staff as they come in to make the progress that's needed. I'm grateful for George and Kevin and their trust in me to continue to get this thing back on track and get it corrected. I do want to address some
Joe
of the
Shane
things
will say
that
the
I've
same
heard
thing
about the relationship
in the
between
Giants
Kevin and I
presser.
that couldn't be further from the truth. We spend almost every single day together talking about solutions and direction of where we want to be and where we're going to go. It is so far from the truth. It was a little disappointing to hear that, to be honest.
Yeah, we're all
But we do have a
disappointed,
strong
Ryan. We know
core
that
that we're
feeling
gonna
as Bears fans.
Get with the right staff and make things happen. I was proud of the way some of our core veteran players played this year with DJ, Jalen Johnson, TJ Edwards, Kevin Byard, Cole Kmet. And I was very excited and happy with the development of guys like Dexter, Darnell, Rome, and Caleb. Looking at Caleb, I thought he did some really good things. But I
Javon
also
didn't
know
improve
that
enough. Darnell
there is
didn't
so much
improve enough.
more left in him.
You're singling out
and
Cole
his
Kmet
game
for
and
his
his
play
skill
this
set.
year. It's
I
the
love
worst
flashes
season
that
that
he
he's had as a
showed.
pro.
I love the 2-minute drills and his ability to put the team in a position to win games multiple
No,
times
we've
in this
just
season. That is a
casually
championship caliber
finished our
trait. We
fourth
watched that,
consecutive double-digit
especially
loss
this
season.
time of
Yeah.
year moving forward. We
Let's
watched that
talk about some
happen a lot,
positives.
and we're going to continue to build off of that. We have cap space. We have draft.
Used
capital,
it.
and like I said, we have continuity to continue to roll forward. In terms of our coach search, we've taken the last month or so to prepare our process. We've taken time to look
It's
back
way too wide of a net.
at the past processes to make sure that we were making changes.
You always
This is an
knew
over.
that
so that this
that
is
was
a-
It's an
going to be the
overcompensation.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, but
we've
it's an
been in information gathering
overcompensation.
mode.
We had 2
looking at data,
little for him to
research,
choose from.
making countless calls
It's
Cars,
3.
to make sure
we
that
know
we have
this is
everything
coming
we
down to
need to
2
make a
guys.
sound decision.
It's coming
But
down
I'm
to
What we're
I'm
looking for,
happy
we're
for
looking for clear
David Shaw.
vision,
I think that's a great
developmental
interview
mindset,
to have.
yeah.
But so
really
many of the
good
rest of
game
them,
management,
Anthony Weaver,
and
what are
obviously
you,
a
Vance
plan to
Joseph?
develop a quarterback
you
is going
doing?
to be a key part of that as well. We're going to cast a wide net. It's
Just
going to be a
add
diverse
Gerard
group.
Mayo
There's gonna be
into
different
that.
backgrounds
Let's-
from offense, defense, special teams, college, pro. We are turning every stone to make sure that we're doing this the right way. We believe that's going to be really, really important. There's going to be some names that you don't expect that are going to surprise you because we're digging deeper than we ever have before. In terms of timing, we're going to move with urgency, but we are not going to rush the process again because we want it to be a sound process. In terms of the interview panel,
Can you pause for a
it'd
second?
be George, Kevin,
Before-
Matt Feinstein, who does
and then
admin with
rewind
me,
it because
football
I just
admin.
talked over that part. But when you look at that list of candidates and that wide net,
Mhm.
and you talk about like how you're coming from all of these directions, it tells me two different things. One, you don't have a sense of what it is that you're looking for. You just don't. Especially, you cast that wide net if you're not ultra comfortable that you're going to get the top two guy, one of the top two guys. And so you cast this and you're like, we're going to look at special teams, we're going to look at offense, we're going to look at defense. That's all well and good,
And
but you right now should define three
Yeah.
traits that you're looking for, and those are the guys. And I can tell you, these candidates, like I liked Monken. I think it's an interesting guy, but he doesn't have anything in common with some of the other people that you're
No, and
interviewing.
I think Cars, if you gave these guys a truth serum, I think that they have their small list, but the Bears are vindictive. They're a greasy organization that is in love with public perception and stuff like that. So that to them, it needs to be said that we're going to cast a wide net and they're going to put out this entirely. And I feel like Cars, they know that 85% of them aren't even going to be in consideration. But the public perception that they're turning over every stone is what they're concerned with, because that is the Chicago Bear way.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're right. Say specifically who is making that decision.
Yeah.
Because it's not the guy here and it's not the other guy. Who's making that? That's George, because George is the one to play that perception game all the time. Just like he was happy when you sent that picture of him walking around Lambeau and he wanted that thing.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
don't, we've all worked for really bad leaders. We've all had bad bosses.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. Not everyone that does a task extremely well can be a boss. What do bad bosses like to do? Be as visible as hell so that they'd
Yep.
be like, well, he's approachable. And what does everybody always say about George? Oh, he's so approachable. He's always around, because
Yep.
they care more about the perception. The
Exactly.
problem and the miscalculation is right now that this has been so bad for so long that the perception is no longer a positive
Mhm.
thing. It's now coming across to not even just what I would say the more in the know fan, those who really study what's going on, those who are diehards like us and the folks that listen to a lot of podcasts and pay that much attention. But the casual fan is over this. And
Yeah,
this is the
I agree.
momentum and the time that if they screw this up, if they go out and the hire is someone that has not been someone that is not Mike Vrabel, I can understand a Monken from a perception. I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying from a perception perspective. If it is an Anthony Weaver or a Vance
Yeah,
Joseph,
it's over before it starts.
and the perception is tanked. Absolutely
Yep.
tanked.
No,
And that's
I
the only reason Pete Carroll's in this conversation.
I totally agree. And you look back and the Bears, you look back, just at this past draft, and listen, we were all in on Caleb, but Caleb was the only quarterback that they brought in. Now, the way that I am going to run that is if I am in the position that Ryan Poles was, I'm bringing other guys in 100%. The Bears
But
didn't.
why are they doing that? Because they want to protect Caleb, because it becomes again a perception thing.
Exactly. And I think that they've heard that enough, and they look back as, oh, here's your list of 3, and I chose him, talking about Flus. So what is the next step in the progression for these guys is the public perception of wide net. And
yes,
I feel like end of the day, Albert Breer came out with his report that, Vrabel's very likely the leader in the clubhouse in New England, but Vrabel is very, very open. And according to Albert Breer, Chicago has a legitimate shot to close the deal with Mike Vrabel to win that.
Close it though with what he also said.
Right. And then we also know that the Ben Johnson stuff with Jacksonville and Balky, and that whole mess. And I think you pointed it out, Cars, earlier today. It seems like that Jacksonville's already took the head first dive into the second tier of options because of that already. And to me, this is coming down to Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson. If Vrabel goes to New England, then I think that Ben Johnson is going to be the next coach of the Chicago Bears. It's going to be interesting to see how the Bears are going to meet with Vrabel tomorrow. They cannot hire him tomorrow. I know a lot of people think that can happen. It can't happen. There's an entire process. You have to do
because of the Rooney Rule.
Yeah, the Rooney Rule, and Thomas Brown does not qualify for that because he's an in-house candidate. It's got to be, I think Cap said what it's got to be at least it's 2 in-person interviews. So yeah, but here we go. But it comes down to public perception, like you said, Cars. And that's what they're
take it a step further, right? Because we know Albert Breer is as plugged into Ohio State as anybody else, more than anybody else that covers this. And he ended that interview with the phrase, "If I were the Bears, I would hire Mike Vrabel."
Yes.
Now, maybe this is this is reading too much of the tea leaves, but that tells you that Mike would want this job more than New England. And the only reason that is the case is because of Caleb. That is it. Caleb makes that much of a difference, and it tells you how he's still viewed, that he would want that role. So them saying that tells you where Mike Vrabel is, because I think he looks at it, if I take it a step further, well, he would replace and kind of be the one to finally replace Bill. Do you want to walk in his footsteps, or do you want to make your own footsteps with a franchise that has been as downtrodden as ours? And I think he's someone that loves the challenge.
Sure.
And would do that. And so to me,
and
Ben
Cars,
Johnson's
let's be honest,
there's
some listen, the organizations aren't comparable when you're talking about history and Super Bowls and all of that. But let's not sit here and pretend like there's not some big time skeletons in the New England Patriots closet with how everything ended with Belichick and then the hit job that they did on Belichick with that documentary, with Robert Kraft, that they were ahead up. Mike Vrabel knows all that.
Their drafts have been subpar at best, and for all the stuff that we want to give Flus, and yes, he's missed polls, and he's missed picks, but he's done fairly well overall comparatively. Like he's an average to above average drafter. He's made some good free agent moves. Everyone's going to miss, and we can focus on those misses. But I would tell you, Poles has drafted way better than the wonder kid of Elliott Wolf and some of the others in that New England team. And so when you come to it, and you have 0 wideouts in New England that you'd feel confident for. Both have questionable lines. Both have okay running back rooms. When you look at those sorts of things, the difference is a quarterback. If you have a quarterback, you can win. And someone who wants to, there's still questions about Drake May. He had some moments, but he was 15-10. He still showed some of the things that you saw in UNC that you were like, 3 throws, you're like, holy shit, there he is. And then 3 throws, you're like, what are you even looking at? And so I think those things add in. To me, Shane, this just feels like it's Vrabel's 1A. If they fuck that up, it's Ben Johnson. And if they fuck that up, this is game over. Like it's game over for this franchise for 5 years.
Yeah, you're not wrong, man. Let's dive back into this.
Jeff King, who's on my staff, Liz Geis, who's in HR, and obviously I'm missing Ian there. I think it's really important to allow Ian to go through.
According to
his
Cap,
own
Jeff
process
King is extremely close with Ben
if
Johnson.
If it doesn't, he will be in that group as
well. But
it
is interesting that George is part of this process. Who says he doesn't make the decisions, and he doesn't need to be part of the process.
Everyone's gone through the league training in terms of inclusivity. It's
like a CEO hiring the janitor. You don't need to be.
And as we move forward in our process, they will have time to spend with our candidates, especially as we get down to the finalist group. I'll open up to questions.
And when you talk about looking in the mirror and re-examining past processes, what were some of the errors you made in hiring Maddie Reflus, Luke Getzey, Shane Waldron? And how will that inform you to get this right?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things that I mentioned is just casting a wide net. I think it's adding more data to the equation. It's digging deeper with our research.
Auto insurance all seems the same until it's time to use it. With USAA, it's easy to file claims, schedule.
All of those things are really important. I think also knowing the team and where it is right now, knowing it better than I ever have before. That's important. I think as you go along,
I don't know
gain
how you
wisdom
could make
every
that
single year
phrase.
and
You
every
don't
experience that
know
you go through.
Yeah.
And
this
that helps you
team.
make better
From
decisions.
what
as you
we've
go.
heard about
Given the
where it
historic
started from
nature
week one,
of this year's failure,
you
what
don't.
specifically are you
What
willing?
was it?
Given the historic nature of this year's failure, what specifically are you willing to take ownership of that contributed to the unraveling?
We lost games, and at the end of the day, the wins and losses and the record, that's on me. I'm in charge of the football operation. I've been entrusted to get this organization to a championship caliber, and we came up short with that, and I have to take responsibility for that.
Your plan for Caleb was very specific and very elaborate. His entire rookie season was subjected
Guy,
to
the entire
disruption and
point
stress.
of that, and I know you
What-
like to
Can you explain
nitpick
disruption?
every little morsel of what is
Offensive
said.
coordinator got
The
fired,
entire
assistant coach got
point is
fired.
George
A
is
lot of
adamant
turmoil
every
throughout the
time
course
that
of
he
his
is,
rookie
I'm
season.
just a
What
fan.
went wrong?
I'm not a
with your plan?
football guy.
Yeah.
He says that over
Obviously,
and over and over
there's
again.
some things when
He
when
can
there's
be
a staff in
involved
place,
all he wants.
you know,
That's the point.
when
He
we
makes
went
an
through the
effort of
interview
trying to
cycle
tell
with,
everybody that he is
Shane,
not involved. And he
there's-
has
Can
his
you pause for a
fingers
there's some
second?
on
compatibility
everything.
things. I
Yeah.
think there's some challenges with pairing, and I answered
And
this
just
before.
to piggyback onto that, he has gotten upset during press conferences where he sits down and
course.
says, "Listen, I'm a fan. I'm not there." But for the longest time, who was in the interview room? It was he and Ted Phillips,
Ted.
two men who both said, "Hey, listen, we let the football guys
Yeah, we stay
run
out of the
everything,
football. Yeah.
but you're the ones partaking and making this decision as part of this." And you're right. Every owner is involved, but most you don't hear about it. The owners where you hear that they're involved right now are Mara, um, Johnson and the Jets, Jerry Jones in Dallas, Khan in Jacksonville, the guy out in Cleveland. What do those have in common? They're all the worst run franchises. The guy in Indianapolis, who's Irsay, who's just completely off his rocker. Over the last decade, which teams have been the poorest run ones?
Right.
Those. And look what's happened. They
I-
have fallen apart because of these owners who say, "Hey, I'm hands off," and then you hear like Woody Johnson's kids is turning down trades because they're telling him the Madden ratings for a player is too low. They're impacting decisions, and as owners, you should have a say. But if you think that if you come out to me and say, "I'm just a fan, I have nothing to do with this," but I interview and make the decisions for everybody that makes the decisions for that, guess what? You are the problem. You are not a fan. I have no problem with George interviewing and talking to these, well, interviewing is strong, talking to these candidates. No problem with that. But he should not be part of the interview process because what he has proven as a leader is that he sucks at identifying a good candidate. Bottom line, how else do you choose Mark Trestman over Bruce Arians? How else do you give a final three to Ryan Poles without talking to Kevin O'Connell, without talking to McDaniel in Miami, without talking to all of these names? The problem is your owner at that point. Step aside, talk to every candidate, but he should not be part of the panel that this man is talking about that is going to make the decision for the next head coach. If this is his decision and he wants Kevin Warren in it, sure. But George McCaskey should not be part of an interview panel for this.
For a rookie quarterback that has a lot of growth, he had 37 starts, in college. You'd like to, have in that 35 to 40 range, and there's a lot of growth there, and there's some compatibility to make sure that it's being taught the right way. And I think there were some hiccups there, and again, that's part of the ownership piece that I got to take.
Ryan, how will you, as the organization set up this coaching search and is trying to make it as attractive as his job as possible, were you given a contract extension?
I've said from the day I've been hired, I'm not going to get in my contract that I just think it's a very personal thing in terms of how much I'm making and how long I'm making.
Nobody
You understand
asked. Nobody
So
asked your financials.
The candidates that we talk to,
They're asking how many years you're under contract.
Seems to be maybe an overriding or at least a theme in the locker room that the players need more discipline, need to be challenged more. Is that true? Is that the type of coach that this locker room needs based on you learning more about your players?
Yeah, I think that's.
And this is the one where I think
for
he
any
loses
locker room.
me quite a bit.
I had made a comment a couple weeks ago about training camp. I think one important thing is we look at the wins and losses, but you got to go to the root cause on how we got there. And I do think we need to challenge our guys more. And when we talk about accountability, there's systems of accountability. It's how are we going to put tape up of this is not how we do it. And then with examples of this is how we do it. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. I call that healthy friction.
All right, Gabby from Vegas. Let's go
That's
ahead
actually a
and
good
down
place to
your
pause.
concentrate order. So
Yeah.
our brownie batter went back in stock today. And so you went
skip it.
I definitely think we
Hit pause for a second.
Yep.
So that is probably the strongest statement. And right there, I would have been incredibly proud of Ryan for saying that, because everything we know is that these players were not held accountable. They were not pushed. That had been the strongest statement that he made. And he was well within his rights to make it for a coach who is not going to be a defensive coordinator next year,
Right.
who probably will not be in the league next year because of this. This is a guy who's going to get fired at Indy, and we make him our head coach. If the soundbite stops there, props to you, Ryan Poles. Sadly, it does not stop
Unfortunately,
right there.
yeah, we only paused, so there is more.
need more of that, and that would help result in closing that gap on some of these games that we came short.
Ryan, when these
What could the numbers get to?
I haven't put a limit on it. I think the restriction at some point is how much time you have. There's a lot of rules that go along with kind of setting your calendar up. So we want to make sure that it fits that and it's not stressing us out to an extent where we're not doing quality work. It absolutely needs to be quality, but I haven't put a number on it.
Ryan, what assurance?
It's like test driving 14 cars.
About the power structure inside Hallis Hall, about who they work for, about clarity there. There seems to be some questions.
Yeah, no. So I'll end up selecting the coach. I'm taking the lead on that, and George and Kevin have put me in charge of that, and that'll be the relationship between the coach and I.
When you told Adam, you know that coaches are going to ask about your status and about being aligned with you. What will you tell them?
Yeah, I'll have that conversation with them, and we'll go from there.
Ryan, when it comes to
when you talk about coaches like having a wide enough pool where there might be some coaches that surprise you, are all options on the table? Would you consider giving up draft capital to trade for a coach of a currently employed by another team?
Yeah, we'll look at all avenues to get the best coach here.
Somehow Mike
You
McCarthy
guys
is on
talked
that
about the
list.
culture here, the leadership here a lot, about what you had. How did it get from that to where we're talking about details and lack of accountability? What do you think kind of fractured that?
Yeah,
And here's
there's
where
a
he
couple
gets
things
weak.
there. When we talk about culture, and I've talked about this, I strongly believe culture is people. I mean, you all spend time with them. There's a really good locker room, and they're with really good guys. I think there's some foundational things that you have to address from the beginning to kind of hold the standard throughout the entire year. I believe when you go through struggle, some of those things get difficult, right? Guys are struggling with just being down and losing games. And I think that's some of the things that we saw. Any team needs like a certain standard and certain measurements of how we're going to do things. Because at some point in the season, you're going to have adversity and your house is going to be shaken and your foundation's tested. And at that point, you got to go look at the root cause. Did we do everything we were supposed to in terms of detailing everything we needed to? Because if you didn't, it's a little bit off. And like I said, I think we looked at the outcome and winning more than the process in doing those things. Then those things show up and bubble up. Especially, we were put in a lot of situations where, we're a couple yards away from a kick line. We were right there in a lot of situations. And I think some of the competitive poise popped up in terms of doing what we need to do and being disciplined to get over the hump.
Ryan, there was a lot of discussion, and I'm sure you guys will have this discussion too, about pairing an offensive guy with the young quarterback versus, a guy that can kind of oversee the whole thing and maybe has head coaching experience, things like that. Just what is your general philosophy when it comes to that kind of tug of war between those two head coaching candidates?
Yeah, I think there's for a young quarterback, obviously there's ideal fit, but at the end of the day, you got to look at all the characteristics of what you're looking for in a head coach. And then you got to see what's the best bundle of those to bring in the building. Obviously, we're talking about leadership, accountability, some of those important things that carry over regardless of what the situation is. So those have to be there. To ignore those,
You didn't
just
have it
to
last
go
year,
to the
Chief.
other
That's
side,
the
I think
problem.
is a bad deal too. So
just
really,
word
it's
salad.
the candidate that has
You did
the
not
best
have it.
collection of all of those things.
So it
And
didn't
yes,
carry
the
over.
development of a young quarterback is going to be a huge factor in that.
Ryan, you were on the verge of 5-2 in late October, and then the Hail Mary happened. Why did that set off such a downward spiral for this team in your mind?
Yeah, that's
Because we
that's a
don't
tough way to
have
lose.
leaders in the
I think
locker
a lot
room.
of questioning happens just in terms of how did we get there.
We have leaders in
It's
title only.
emotional in terms
that's
of
just a
the
fact.
drain that comes from a
8
loss
of
like
them,
that.
right?
And
No.
that's where we got to be better.
You
just
have
in terms
8,
of
you have
resilience
none.
of bouncing back and get back to things. So it was disappointing to kind of see things go south after that deal. And there's a lot of learning lessons from that game for our guys to make sure we don't put ourselves in that position again.
What was the most frustrating element for you with the offensive line play throughout the season? And then can you touch on Montez Sweat's season? You get the big impact last year, had some different injuries this year, but didn't seem to be the multiplier, which I think was the word you guys used a year ago.
Yeah. So line wise, the frustrating
There's no
piece of that
multiplier. There's
is I
only
think
dividers.
It was hard to really identify. I'll say it this way: there wasn't one reason. It wasn't always offensive line. It wasn't always the quarterback. It wasn't always the running back and protection. There's a lot of factors in there to look into, and I think all were involved, and it's a place we need to improve as we move forward. Because obviously, you don't want your quarterback hit that much, and some of those things do fall on Caleb. I think he's mentioned that to you guys in terms of getting us in a position to pick things up and also getting the ball out on time. And that's part of being a young quarterback is you're trying to figure out the coverages and you're seeing a lot of different things, but you're also trying to be right. And that leads to some of those sacks. So I think, again, there's a lot of learning to be done in that situation.
Ryan, what about Sweat?
Yep. I'll answer. For Montez, we had a good conversation. I know he's disappointed in himself and wants to
You
continue
could
to
see
get better.
Montez Sweat clearly
he
was
knows
not
he's
healthy
capable
all year
of
long.
much
I mean,
more.
when I was in Buffalo,
Also,
you
as we
could tell
continue
just by
to
him
build the
walking up and
defensive
down the
line,
sideline. That was in
adding more
preseason
talent on that would help.
that he wasn't healthy.
When we looked at some of the chip
He
numbers and
fought
double
through
teams, he did
everything.
get a fair share of those too. And the way that you defeat that is continue to add talent to create more one-on-one matchups.
Ryan, you mentioned this leadership group.
Guy,
Can
you're
you expand
100%
on who
correct.
else
And that
that
is the
and why
entire
it's
point
important
of
that they're involved
why,
in your search here?
at the end of the day, it being an offensive or defensive only coach, whatever people want, it doesn't.
Yeah, so
people that say that
goes into
being a
Hit
leader
pause
of
for a
men
second.
doesn't.
On the business side, I think it's really important. Kevin,
Good.
Finish your thought because I think that's important, though.
Yeah, just when I've seen in the media, and Shay Norling from ESPN 1000 is adamant of, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about leader of men. That is exactly where it fucking starts, is from your head coach. Our team is a reflection of Matt Eberflus, who's taking care of his fucking bees right now. That's who they are. And look at the chaos that we had with Tressman. Look at the way that we were with John Fox, Matt Nagy, all of that. You have to have an I don't give a I'm not saying that you need to come out and break TVs and throw your cell phone and all of that shit. It's when Tyreek Stevenson acts like a fucking petulant child on the fucking field, then his ass is going to be sat down and he's going to know it. And everybody else on the 53 is going to know it right then. not Wednesday in practice, not letting him leave practice and come back 15 minutes later. That's what my 3-year-old does. That is not a leader. That's the leader of your 90 and 53 man roster that this moron here hired. That is your leader. And that is why you're in chaos, because your owner is a fool. That's what they're good at. They're good at chaos and chasing their tail and making shitloads of money, because that's what matters.
And when you look at the captaincy, just because you're the most talented player doesn't necessarily mean that you should be. I love DJ Moore, but what have we learned about DJ Moore? He's not very vocal. He's very quiet. He's very behind the scenes. What have you learned about a lot of those guys? That's the way they are. The most vocal one, and the only one to me that really deserved it was Byard from this year, from the way that he spoke. He'd come with a lot of veteran experience. He played at a very high level. TJ Edwards, that's another person that should be a cat because of, who he is and what he does. But on the offensive side of the ball, who would you say your captain should be? Caleb, simply by quarterback, and I think that changes this year because he's got a year in. He's not playing the rookie thing. He doesn't have to kowtow. But nobody else is a captain on the offense right now, or should be. You have no captains on the offensive line. Remember when people were saying with Ryan Bates out that there really wasn't a leader in the offensive line. You sort of need that leader in every different area. Cole Kmet is another one to me that I think does deserve to be a captain in the way that he performs, the way that he acts, but he's not vocal. He's not going to go up and correct someone. You need a little bit of that veteran presence there.
I don't think Cole has confidence in himself in that role, and that's a fucking problem. It's
they
like
screwed him over and over again. And this isn't in an attempt of being like Cole Kmet is the greatest tight end, but at the same point, look how they had to force Shane Waldron to use him. And from what we know, what happened behind the scenes, he was asking questions. How this season started, Shane, I don't know how he would be a captain or how he would be confident in that ability, because it came across to him like he wasn't needed, and then Gerald Everett was the guy. And so every step, when you talk about, like, I agree with the statement that leader of men is one of the most overused phrases. It's important, but a good head coach will be that.
Right, but when you have no foundation cars in your organization, it's critical.
But you don't have the players. You can get away with one who isn't so great if you have a strong team captaincy. Let's look at Philadelphia as the example, right? Sirianni's not a great leader. He doesn't instill confidence. He doesn't do a whole lot. He's clearly fighting with Jalen Hurts. All of those different things. But guess what? You've had Fletcher Cox, you've had Brandon Graham, you've had Lane Johnson, and all these longtime vets who have been there that when he went to go after Jalen Carter, Clint Hurt got in his face and wouldn't let him go after him. Now, I think Carter was in the wrong on the play that they're talking about, but there was leadership every step along the way. So you can sort of get away with it at the head coach if you have a veteran presence with people who are vocal, who have had success. It can't be Mercedes Lewis, who hasn't been a plus player in over a decade. I'm sorry. It has to be someone that performs. The Bears fucked up because they had a coach who couldn't lead, and all their leaders were based on talent and not vocal ability and where they were in their career. So no one could step up to Flus. Flus wouldn't enforce anything. So everything just got worse. You can get away with someone who is, and he can't be as weak as Flus. You can get away with someone who isn't a total alpha Mike Vrabel. Ben Johnson is not going to be Mike Vrabel. He's not going to be that alpha. But if you get the right people and the right coaching staff and the right people around him, that takes care of itself. Here, it sounded to me like the veterans wanted to hold people accountable, and the coaching staff was the one that's like, "Oh no, we'll let Tyreek go. He knows he messed up. Like let's move on."
Yeah, and I see. Just curious, has asked this a couple of times. No, I don't, because I think if you probably missed the beginning of the show where we address that directly, is I think they're casting the wide net more so for public perception. So, ESPN 1000 and everybody else can say, oh, they're doing their due diligence. And I believe at the end of the day, they have a core group that they're focused on, and everything else on the outside, the David Shaws, the Anthony Weavers, the guys like that, it's just kind of like ancillary bullshit that they're not going to get the job, but it's us turning over every stone.
There's probably like 4 or 5 tiers to this. The tier of who they absolutely want to hire is Rabel and Ben. I think the second tier is Flores and maybe a couple other names in there of, hey, we missed on those. Those are, and yeah, the rest of them, maybe that's a Monken, and everybody else falls in that tier 3 or lower candidate of like, man, we're just here to gather information. Broncos, you've got Vance and Shaw. It's been a decently run organization. What do you take from that? What has worked there, and things like that?
I talk about all the time, just the continuity between football and business. That's one thing we take a lot of pride on here. So it's important when we get to the right phase that they're involved as well, and become familiar with our staff. And I think that's important because it's a part of the family that's here, and they support football, and football supports business, and it's a beautiful relationship, and that's something we take seriously.
After 3 seasons in this job, what do you point to as your most significant accomplishments here?
So the things that we've done on the roster, I think from a quarterback position, I think
Unsettled offensive
he
line.
hasn't even hit close to his ceiling, and
Our tight
hit a lot of
ends,
milestones that
our
haven't been
defensive
hit here in
line.
a very long time.
We've had no change. We've got one
Just
type of
this
running
past
back.
draft, I think
Right.
Roma Dunze is going to be one of the best receivers to come through here. He's a very talented, humble, and I think his leadership's going to grow. I mentioned Darnell Wright. I think from another top 10 pick, I think that's a guy that continues to get better every single year. The secondary, obviously, also being aware of the guys that were here that have done a nice job and extended and make sure that they are here. So I think there's just a lot of things on the roster that we continue to chip away. I think sometimes I'm hard on myself, and even looking at the situation.
I will say this, and I know
from
that there's a
what we
lot
walked
of
into
issues.
and how
I
much in the
think
red we were to where we are
that there
today.
is a lot
I
of
think
talent
as a
on
front
this
office, we
roster.
can take
There
a lot
is.
of pride
I
in
just
that.
think it's managed
Are we going to hit on
very
everything? No.
poorly.
Have we missed some things? Absolutely.
And where it's
I do take
weak,
pride
it's
in the fact that we are
extremely
learning
weak.
from
Yep.
those misses, and we continue to improve. So
And
I
unfortunately,
think
it's
from a
weak
roster
at
standpoint, we continue to get better.
trenches.
Critical,
Where I
yeah,
want to get better is supporting
where it all
the coaching
starts.
staff to make sure that we have all the
From a
systems in
former
place to make
offensive
sure that
lineman.
things
Yeah.
like happen this year in terms of the accountability, things like that. I want to make sure without micromanaging or getting into things, like just awareness to make sure I'm pushing forward and being a good partner to say, hey, let's make sure we hit these things so that they don't manifest later.
On that topic of accountability, you alluded in the pregame show a couple weeks ago that you traced some of this back to issues that popped up during training camp. What specifically are you referring to with that, and why didn't that get addressed back in the summer?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but we were just talking about discipline. Like we had some mistakes in pre-snap penalties, and we had a couple, they call them dojos, like don't jump situations in 2-minute drills that
Couple.
some of them showed up in
More than
practice,
that.
and it was addressed. But could we have done more? Could we have pushed more to make sure that they don't show up on game day?
Ryan, are you guys using outside consultants in the coaching search in any way? Background, any of that? Okay.
Background, yes.
Do some background work, stuff like that. Speaking of background work, why is the list so long? You
Yeah,
guys have had
that's a good
a month and a half to, you haven't been able to interview
This is a
coaches over
great
the last
question.
month and a half, but
It
you've been
is.
able to do a lot of research, and you could have narrowed that.
There's some intriguing candidates that we want to talk to.
Ryan, you put a lot of
locker room needing more leadership.
Say that one more time.
The locker room itself needing more leadership. Like the players are asking for a coach, but I'm wondering if you're looking at the locker room right now thinking, I need somebody to come in there and.
Yeah, well, we definitely will take that into consideration as we add more talent.
Starts with the head coach,
I've also
Carm.
challenged in some of our exit meetings, some of our guys to take the next step to lead as well.
Yeah, but
You know,
you're asking
I
people
was in the
to
same
do something
category
that
and some
they
of our guys were
Right.
too, in
may
terms of,
not come
you know, I saw
naturally. It's
this
like
and
asking Mitch to
I
be a
just
leader.
should I say
Wasn't gonna
something about
happen.
this? Should I step up? And I encourage all those guys, we got to get to this place. We've been together long enough. There's continuity.
I treated myself to a Wild Alaskan Company membership, and my only regret is that I didn't do this sooner. Every month I get.
I think this is just
We
going to
aren't gonna take
basically
things
repeat
personally or
from here on
amongst
out.
each
Like
other.
Yeah,
But,
it is. And yeah, we
it
can
did
move
feel
on
like they
to.
cut a little bit of the
They did.
the weakening of the Matt Eberflus statement that is no longer in there, which
Right.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch again, but it does feel like that was removed, which I think is awfully fucking telling.
Yeah, this is the ChicagoBears.com feed.
Yep. Because when I watched it live after he said,
Yeah, oh yeah.
then it's not to say that there wasn't accountability, but it just wasn't.
Yeah.
That part seems to be gone.
He punched
unless I
him
talked over it.
punched him in the face, and then he was handing him the towel to, wipe the blood off of his lip. But yeah, it's
Very Chris Brown of him.
yeah, exactly. And I know everybody is overreacting, but so what do we have for the openings right now? We have Chicago, Jacksonville, the Jets. What else? Who am I missing? New England, and then there's a fifth team. Who's the fifth team?
Jets.
Somebody in the chat will have it.
Jets, Jags, Bears, Patriots,
and Saints. Right? Bullets.
Saints.
Got it.
I always forget about the Saints. Wow,
So
Bullets was something relevant. That's
just
and
break
on
it.
time.
This is where you have to. This is where if you can be analytical for a second, is where it's going to help you. Ben Johnson's not going to New Orleans with their cap situation, with their ownership group, and with their no quarterback.
Well, but to that, it's not just that their cap sucks now.
Oh,
Their cap
yeah.
sucks because they keep punting.
Right. Well, that's
They
when
have-
you say fuck a cap and cap is fake. No, it's not. Tony Soprano comes knocking at your door at some point when you have to pay the fucking piper. But he's not. So let's
they're
just
screwed.
But let's just break this down. So to me, what this comes down to, Cars, it's a two-man race for two jobs. Mike Vrabel in New England, Mike Vrabel in Chicago, Ben Johnson in New England, Ben Johnson in Chicago.
You're 100% correct because one, take the Jets. The Jets have a terrible situation.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers is gone. I don't think you could understand the damage.
Did you know that they
Woody
didn't
Johnson
even
hit
request? They didn't even request an interview for Ben Johnson because they've
They
already
know.
been told that he will not interview there. Same with the Saints. Jacksonville has requested. Albert Breer didn't come out and say it specifically, but he said, don't be surprised when the only two teams that Ben Johnson interviews with are the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears. And then he went on his soliloquy about Mike Vrabel, saying that Mike Vrabel is the perfect combination of, city and team that embodies who he is. And Cars, you brought up a great point when we were talking earlier today. He's an Ohio State guy. Albert Breer's an Ohio State guy. Albert Breer covered the New England Patriots for years and years. Mike Vrabel played there for years and years. So this is the way that this all works, everybody, in case you're not, up to date and don't realize how this, everybody has friends in the media. They're going to help their specific guys out. This was all happening for a reason. It's going to be it's a two-horse race for two teams at the end of the day. I think Aaron Glenn ends up in New Orleans would be my guess. Who knows what's going to happen in Jacksonville? And
would it shock you if in like 2 weeks they tried to fire Trent Baalke and be like, hey, we're sorry because you're setting up
did
an
you see the interview yesterday with Shad Khan?
No.
Shad Khan and Trent Baalke were on separate Zooms, but in the same interview. And the guy asked him flat out if it came down to a coach that you believed in, and he said that he doesn't want to work with him, pointing specifically at Balky right there, what would you do? And Shad Khan said, well, if that's the way that it came down to and I wanted the guy, then yeah, we would have to do that. And I got to give Shad Khan some respect for that, because that's exactly how you should be.
I don't. And the reason I don't is because how he's known
Oh,
for
no, he
ages.
shouldn't be there now. Right. Yeah. No,
But that's the thing. It's like, oh, that's great. But you've known for a while. It has been in circles for a while. The only reason you ended up with Doug Peterson is because most people would not take that job to work with that douche. And so, Shane, just to kind of like wrap the bow about what you said, this should be a 2-team, 2-horse race. If the Bears end up with someone who is not Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson, there is no hope for 3 to 5 years because this franchise is fucked.
Well,
That's the way I feel.
It tells you about the people that were involved. And it goes back to Phil's video that he made about the meddler. That's what it comes down to, Cars. I'm not a football guy. I'm just a football fan.
Oh,
I'm
I
not involved
gotta
in
run the kitchen, folks. I gotta drop. I'll talk to you, buddy.
Yep.
See everybody.
Man. See you, Cars. So let me just I'll remove Ryan Poles because it's essentially just, word salad at this point with him. I'm going to bring up Kevin Warren and we'll listen to him because I don't have a whole bunch of time here either. But let me grab Kevin Warren's feed, bring him up. There he is. Did he start off this with a prayer? Does anybody know? For a new stadium? Here we go.
Taking the time to come out today. I hope your families are well. Hope you had a great holiday. I want to keep my opening comments brief. First, I want to thank ownership again for this incredible opportunity to lead this franchise. Obviously, thank our players and coaches and staff, and most of all, thank our fans just for being the best fans in the world. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
I mean, can you expand on the idea of your SVPs being involved, the business side being involved in these interviews, and what type of input are you looking for from them?
I think it'll be some SVP, senior vice presidents, and also some executive vice presidents. I think what it shows is that we just want to have a collaborative organization to provide our individuals, our employees here. A lot of them, like Karen Murphy, one our chief operating officer, but has been here over 20 years. They have insight into the organization. And all these interviews they go both ways. It's not only us interviewing the candidates, but it's the candidates interviewing us. And I want to make sure, I know Ryan wants to make sure that we provide.
Good to see you again, Jack. Pay you $1,000.
All the opportunities for candidates to ask, questions. So I like the collaborative nature of it, to be able to have them involved in the process at the appropriate time. I know early on, it will be a smaller group, as Ryan addressed.
So the finalist phase?
Well, I don't know if it's a finalist phase, Ryan, because he's running point on it, he'll dictate when that happens. But I think the lesson of it is that this will be a collaborative environment and process.
Kevin, there might be some coaching candidates who come in who want to bring in their own general managers. How do you respond to that, saying that Ryan's leading the search? If somebody comes in and says, I want this job, but I want my own GM.
Yeah, one, I think, we made it clear. I made it clear on early December. And as Ryan talked about today, he is our point person on the search. He's our general manager. He's head of football operations. From a hypothetical standpoint, it probably wouldn't be appropriate for me to answer that at that point in time. I'm confident in our process. I said it in December, and I'll say it again. This will be a coveted job. I mean, we have so much going for us. We have incredible ownership. We have the best fan base in the world. We found a franchise quarterback. We have salary cap space. We have draft capital. We live in a world-class city. We just have a lot of attributes going for us. So I'm
and no
confident,
winning, no winning
that
culture.
If we do our job,
no culture
from
at
a
all.
Process standpoint, which we will, and sit down and be open and honest, that people will look at this as a great opportunity. And from a hypothetical standpoint, I'm confident with the group that we have right now, and Ryan leading our charge.
Ryan has been in this role for 3 years now, and 2 years under your supervision. What is your assessment of his performance as general manager, and what are your biggest concerns about the state of the organization right now?
Yeah, I think the assessment we've made it clear. I trust him, and he is a hard worker. He's young. He's talented. He's curious. I think his greatest attribute, he's willing, as he did just in the press conference, to raise his hand and say, here's some things where he fell short. He's as hard on himself more than anyone could be hard on him. And he strives.
I don't think he was that open at all
to do the right thing.
I think he was very
and I think one of the
nervous.
things in life I encourage Ryan and others is to be self-reflective, which has been good. And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed throughout the season. I've noticed from the first day that we met, and even up to this morning, when we got together at 6 o'clock this morning here early, is that he's reflecting on what he can do to continually be the leader that I know he is, and he will continually grow to be a great leader. And he's passionate about it. He cares. All those things really go into it. He's not here just for all the accoutrements of being a general manager in the league. He wants to win. He loves this franchise. He's passionate about the Chicago Bears, and he's going to do everything he can.
As competitive as you are, what are your concerns about where this team is at the end of the 20?
You know me as well as anyone. I despise losing. And so I am focused at every level.
How do you think we feel, Kevin?
And from at anything I compete in, winning with integrity is my focus. And so from a critical standpoint is we need to do better here. I mean, collectively. And it's not them. When I say we, I'm talking about me collectively. And I'm going to continually pour every ounce of energy in here from a business operation standpoint, from a stadium standpoint, from a football standpoint, to provide all the resources that I have access to, all of my energy and insight to win. And I'm confident that we will win here. We will win championships here. It's not going to be easy. And I know sometime in life, you got to go down to be able to come up, but that's part of it. We're built for this. We have the support of ownership. And the thing that I like about it is that there has been no taking a step back. You saw it in Green Bay. That would have been a very easy game for our players. It was cold. It's on the road. We hadn't won in the division. We hadn't beat them in a long time. But to come together, and even the way the game went, to make our mind up that even after the turnover, to say, let's rally together. And I thought it was apropos to end the season 1-0 in 2025, but do it with a walk-off field goal. And I think that helps set the tone. But yes, we're going to do all that we can to build a champion here.
We had all the momentum last offseason.
You've been here unofficially for 2 years.
20 months.
Yeah, 20 months. What is the status of the stadium? Is downtown still the focus?
Yes.
Arlington Heights, and when are we going to see momentum?
Yeah. So the status is downtown still remains the focus, the museum campus. I feel that we've made a massive amount of momentum. Again, I've been here 20 months, and we've made great progress.
Okay,
but
Kev.
Along with those lines, we own 326 acres of beautiful land in Arlington Heights. It's a fantastic piece of property. We were able to get the memorandum of understanding done there. And so optionality, does exist, but I'll remain steadfast that the goal is to make sure that we have shovels in the ground in 2025, and I'm confident that will happen.
For you personally, having to invest the time you have to invest in this coaching search, does that take away the time that you could be spending on the stadium?
This is my life. I mean, fortunately, I have a wife. We've been, married coming up on 34 years. She's grown up in this business. My kids grew up in this business. I have adult kids. This is my life. The Chicago Bears are my life. And so I spend so much time here anyway. And the thing, as I said it in December, and I'll say it again today, this decision on our head football coach will impact the trajectory of this franchise for the next 10, 15, 20 years. We have to get this right, and I'm confident that we will.
For all the reasons you listed about your confidence in Ryan.
Yes.
Are you committed to him for the long term? Because that seems like that would be a potential concern.
This is key. Listen to this.
If Ryan is at the end of his
Are you
contract,
committed to him long term?
Starting his contract.
I mean, there are a lot of assumptions in your question. When we say long term, I mean, a year is a lifetime. And I know that's important. And I know 2025 is important.
To me,
not
that
only from a football
implies
standpoint,
he did not get an
from a
extension
stadium
right
standpoint,
there.
from an operation standpoint. And so again, I trust Ryan. I trust the process that he has put together. I'm confident it will yield positive results. We will hire a world-class coach, whether it's Thomas Brown or someone who currently does not work in our organization. We will get this right. And I'm looking forward to it. I am so excited about being able to start these interviews. I haven't been able to sleep the last couple of nights.
All right, hey, guys, we're gonna work this right here. 1, 2, 3. What exactly is the progress and momentum you speak of with the stadium search? Because it doesn't seem like there's been a ton of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it doesn't seem
They've
like
picked
that,
out
I
their
mean,
chairs.
we have stadium
We're all
meetings
set
every
with those.
single day. And so from a political standpoint, from a business standpoint, these things are massive projects. I've been here before in Minnesota. This is not buying a house where you go and find it and you put a deposit down and then you close at a certain day. It's so many different things that come together. And I think as you'll see, especially as we get into the spring and summer, you'll start seeing some of this progress that I'm talking about now. But I feel the momentum is really moving in the right direction. And we're exactly, from a stadium standpoint, right exactly where I thought we would be.
Last two. Courtney, go ahead.
Picture this.
I don't buy that.
Saving
for a
up to
minute. That is
10%.
exactly where
You
he thought
bundle
they'd
your
be
home
at this
and auto
point.
insurance with
In 20 months, there's no way.
Like when Ryan talks about accountability, Thomas Brown saying
Yes.
that the foundation needs to be different. At one point, Shane Waldron was a great candidate,
Yep.
so much so he got hired here. Same thing with Matt Eberflus. Are there things that you have to guard against, knowing how things fell apart this year, personality-wise, leadership-wise, in these meetings, so those same sorts of people are not brought into this organization for the next?
Courtney, that's a fantastic question. I think there's nothing to guard against. I would twist a little.
And this is what we talk about over and over here. Good organizations, and this is where I have to give New England credit with the Gerard Mayo, and people think that, it was only a year and he didn't get a fair shot. Good organizations, if they see something that's better, no matter what, they make the tough decision. So if Mike Vrabel goes there and they earmarked him as a better option, then praise New England for that. Do it a year too early. The Bears have never done that, ever. They're always a year or 2 or 3 years too late with everything. They should have cut bait Monday with Ryan Poles. This should have been Kevin Warren up here today talking about interviewing general managers to name the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. But that's not what they're going to do. And we're going to get back into the same situation next year. If he is not extended, which it looks like he is not, I'm talking about Ryan Poles, then you have a general manager going into a lame duck year. And if the Bears falter again next year, which, let's be honest, that's the Bears' MO. That's what they always do more times than not. Then you're going to be going out and hunting for another general manager with a head coach in place. And it continues the circle that the Bears continually, the perpetual circle that they fuck up over and over and over again in the order in which they hire leadership for their franchise. It never makes sense, and they're going to do it again, just like they've done with quarterbacks and then keeping a coach for a year and then firing them. That's the Chicago Bears way. And here we are.
Little bit, and I would say there's standards that we have to set, and that it becomes very simple. The way I look at my life, it becomes very simple. Either you're above the line or below the line. And I think the standard has to be, there's certain standards we're going to have to set, from discipline, accountability, hard work,
This franchise's
vision,
lines on the
foresight,
fucking floor,
leadership,
homie.
game management from a coaching standpoint. And I think we have to commit to those standards, and we have to hold each other accountable that if people start to deviate and justify a reason to go below the standard, we have to say the standard is the standard. It's not about the person, it's about the standard. And I think once we set that standard in the process, which we have done, it will become clear who are the candidates that meet that standard, and then you look for the goodness of fit. But I think that's the thing that I will make sure that I'll focus on making sure that we set the standard and that we abide by the standard.
Councilman Glasspoint, from your time in Minnesota, what experiences can you draw on that will help you in a coaching search? Were you involved in
Yes,
coaching searches?
100%, yes. And I think the experiences is that you need to make sure, if I would say one attribute, is to go into the search without your mind made up. I think that's the thing that I learned the most. You need to go into these searches wide open. And to be able to look at it just from a global standpoint, and what I just said to Courtney, is having a standard. You know, what are we looking for? There takes a certain kind of person, and I say this lovingly with all respect. This is a phenomenal franchise, it's a historical franchise in an incredible city.
It has the
But
potential
our
to be,
fan
Kevin.
base
It is not
because they're
a
so
phenomenal
passionate. You
franchise
have
right
to
now.
be
It's not.
sturdy. You have
It's
to
a
be
losing
disciplined. You have to be
franchise.
strong here in Chicago. You have to basically emulate what Chicago stands for. So this job is a unique job for everyone in these leadership positions. And so I think the thing that I learned in Minnesota is to make sure that you go into this process with clean hands, clean eyes, no decisions, and make sure you set the standard. And then once it becomes clear that that person meets that standard, or those persons, start to zero in and then make a determination. And then once you make a determination, you got to go forward. You can't look back.
Yeah, I just, again, it's more of the same with me with Kevin Warren. It's, you know, to me, he comes across as somebody that is trying to speak things into existence because he's saying them confidently, because he wants you to believe that he knows what he's doing. So he's speaking in positivity, he's speaking forcefully, confidently, because that's going to make you believe in what he's saying. And there's no proof of success there for Kevin Warren, for George McCaskey, for Ryan Poles. There's none. There's none. They do not deserve the benefit of the doubt. They just don't. And anybody that wants to give them the benefit of the doubt, I feel like is just as clueless as this leadership group is overall. That's truly the way that I feel. And now we can get into this fucking clown, George McCaskey, the chairman of the board, our leader of this franchise. See what he has to say. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. First, I want to thank Matt Eberflus for all of his hard work and dedication.
Who gives
on
a
behalf
fuck?
of the Bears.
He was a failure.
Thank
You
you
don't need
to
to thank him.
Thomas
Nobody
Brown
cares.
for all that he
sucked.
did and is doing for the Bears. He said himself he was placed in a very challenging situation, 3 jobs in 1 season.
Some breaking news there
He
from our
embraced that challenge. He said
new
he
hire
doesn't
here
run
at
from him.
TTNL.
I think it invigorated him.
Antonio Pierce fired in
and,
Vegas.
he did great
So
work
that opens
on
up
behalf of
another
the Bears.
interesting scenario, especially with
Thirdly,
Mike Vrabel's
thank you to the fans.
connection to Tom Brady.
We know this has been an incredibly frustrating season with the expectations of September and the disappointments of December. And they stuck with us, and we're grateful for that. They deserve a winner, and we're going to do everything we can to give it to them.
Yeah. Same thing
And
you
if
say
Hub
every
were
year.
here, I would invite him as the Helen Thomas of the Corps to ask the first question. I don't know who's second in tenure, but I would suggest that instead of shouting over each other, you respect each other and take turns.
Fuck you, George.
At the Seattle game, near the end of it, there's some pretty loud chants from the fans that were there, sell the team.
Hey, if you conceal carry, then you're probably going to want this right here, the Vanish holster in camo. And what's really cool.
What was your reaction? I'm sure you heard it or heard about it. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, it's understandable. As Kevin mentioned, our fans are passionate. They're incredibly frustrated. They wanted to make their voices heard. I was more bothered by the week before when Lions fans tried to take over Soldier Field and
That's your fault.
Force the home team to go to a silent snap count. Fortunately, that didn't happen. It's understandable that Bears fans would sell their tickets because of the way the season has gone. And the challenge for us is to put a team on the field that Bears fans are so excited about. They're not interested in selling their tickets.
George, how hard was it to?
Because you inspire no confidence, George.
Obviously, right in the center of that search process for a general manager and head coach. What errors in judgment and process did you identify from that stage that you can apply now here in 2025?
Well, I think Ryan referenced it and Kevin referenced it. You learn from your experiences.
No, you have not.
Gaining
You're a liar.
wisdom, insight, into the process. We're very excited about the process that Ryan has laid out. We're going to start that process as soon as we finish with you folks, and we're looking forward to it.
Something specific.
You guys
Mark?
have never fired a coach in season. How hard was that to do, and were you reluctant to fire Matt Eberflus in season?
We heard a lot about that. The Bears have never done it. Just because we had never done it doesn't mean that there wasn't a situation. Each situation is different. In the 100-year history of the Bears,
Dumb fucking answer.
one person held the job for 40 years. So there's that. I think you take each situation individually. It wasn't that we were adamantly opposed to do it or anything like that. You do what you think is right in the moment.
George,
Kevin?
what was your reaction to Tyreek Stevenson's actions during the Hail Mary and how the team handled it the next couple of weeks?
I had never seen anything like that. As an observer of this great game for more than 60 years, I was more interested after it happened in his reaction and his teammates' reaction. I think he understood that he made a mistake. He owned up to it. He apologized to his teammates. He apologized to the fans, and he said he was going to learn from it. And I think he did.
George, what do you make of,
Yeah.
George, what do you make of the players saying that accountability was lacking in the locker room, and then talk that maybe Caleb Williams wasn't challenged as hard as he could have been challenged?
Well, I think the players are the best barometers of things like accountability. It is said that the great teams are really run by the players, that there's leadership in the locker room to bring that about. And we need to do better in that area going forward.
George.
14 years that you've been in charge, the Bears have hired 3 general managers and 4 coaches.
Thank you,
What
Potsy.
evidence is there that you learned from these processes?
Well, the idea is to get it right. As I said, Bears fans deserve a winner, and we're going to do everything we can. I think with Ryan's leadership and the process that he's outlined, and with guidance from Kevin, Ryan's going to make the best decision going
But
forward.
why will this be different than the previous ones? I mean,
Well, Ryan has the benefit of his experience, and he has the benefit of the guidance from Kevin, who's been through this process before. So we're hoping for a better result.
George,
Go
along those
ahead.
lines, George, why do you think that the current power structure, the setup with Kevin and Ryan, will be cohesive in this coaching search?
Their alignment, their cohesion, their shared values.
This next question coming up
communication.
is telling.
Everything I've seen has been excellent, and expect good results as a result.
George, will Ryan need a contract extension to prove to an incoming coach that their futures are tied together?
I don't think so. In
That's the mic drop.
interviews that I've participated in, that's never been a factor. Nobody has ever come in and said, I'm not going to come here unless the coach or the general manager and I are on the same timeline. So I don't think that's going to be a factor.
George,
Let's pause that right there, because this is where George is a fucking liar. And there's proof of this. If you back up to when the Bears brought in Bill Polian to help them with their search for the next general manager of the Chicago Bears and the next head coach of the Chicago Bears, ownership did not want to fire Ryan Pace. They were totally on board with moving on from Matt Nagy. They wanted to keep Ryan Pace. Bill Polian came to ownership and said, that's fine. It's not what my suggestion is. I suggest you fire them both. But if that is what you want, if you want to keep Ryan Pace, you have to give him a contract extension, because no valid coach is going to come in here with a lame duck general manager that doesn't have his future solidified is going to come here. That's George just told you, showed you that he's a fucking liar. This just happened. From Bill Polian's words. Bill Polian said this. And now he's saying that no candidate has come in here and said that. Yeah, because you've had shitty candidates, George. The guys that you've settled on. Think Matt Eberflus was going to come in here and say that? Of course he wasn't. He wanted the fucking job. This guy's a fucking liar. And then we wonder why year after year after year we're the laughing stock. It's because it starts with this family. But unfortunately, you're never going to change it. You're never going to.
George, what if a coach wants to report a direct line to ownership? We've heard some want that. What do you say to them for that?
Our structure is vertical. Head coach reports to the general manager. General manager reports to the president. President reports to the chairman.
So that would be a deal breaker if someone said that.
Well, I haven't ever experienced anyone saying that. Usually, they want the job.
George, how often do you reflect
Just
on
exactly
your
what I said.
performance as chairman? Do you, ever think about that maybe someone else should be stepping into that role? How long do you plan on staying in this role? Is there a succession plan?
Ultimately, I'm responsible for the failures of the Bears. The legacy of George Halas is excellence on the field and making a difference off the field. I think the Bears have done a great job off the field, making an impact in the community. The fact of the matter is, we haven't done it on the field, and ultimately, that's on me.
Ryan said,
Colleen?
given the way the last 3 years have unfolded, why was it the right move to retain Ryan Poles?
We like his leadership. We like the staff that he's assembled. He has a couple people on his staff, Ian Cunningham and Jeff King, who probably should be general managers for another NFL team. The communication has been excellent. And he's in a business where in the player personnel department, there are going to be hits and there are going to be misses. And the key is you have to have more hits than misses. So that is the challenge for him and for his staff.
George, we heard from Kevin about the stadium, the progress. What is your thoughts on the progress? Is it taking too long at this point?
No, it's not taking too long. These things take time. We're making progress and we're looking forward to a good result.
Last one, Courtney.
Ryan said you guys are going to use outside counsel for background on these head coaching candidates. Who is that? Who's providing that background?
Whatever Ryan picks, that's entirely up to him.
Will Bill Polian, I know he's been part of some of these head coaching searches for you guys before. Will he have a seat in any of these meetings?
If Ryan wants him to, that's fine with me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So there we have it. Did any of that inspire confidence? Hey, they may get it right. Who knows? They may hire Mike Vrabel and hit it out of the park. They may hire Ben Johnson, hit it out of the park. And we'll see. The Bears' history is what their history has been and has always been. The confidence isn't there with me. That's for sure. It's the same old cycle with the Bears. They never want to do anything the proper way. They want to be vindictive and they want to lie and just not be open and honest. Like what difference does it make if Ryan Paul? It's too personal. It's too personal. Talking about his contract extension because I don't want to talk about how much I make. Nobody's asking you how much money you make. Nobody asked that question ever. They want to know the term of your contract, the length, not the financial aspect of it. But it is what it is. This is what we have. And we have to sit here and hope that they get it right. I see there's some people in the chat saying that Ben Johnson is not a leader of men. You don't know that. I don't know that. He may be a fantastic leader. We don't know. There's people in the chat saying that Brian Flores should be hired because he's learned his lesson. We don't know that. You don't know that. Same thing with Mike Vrabel. Is he going to pick the proper OC? Is he going to be the what we need? It's wait and see. We can't wish cast. Just because you think that Caleb needs an offensive coach, you can't wish that Ben Johnson is a leader. We don't know. You have to take a wait and see approach, and that sucks because let's be honest. Whoever is the head coach of the Chicago Bears, it's essentially they're here most likely for a minimum of 3 years as the head coach. So yeah, it's a big deal. But thank you guys for the short notice. We're about 90 minutes in here. I got to bounce. Have some responsibilities on my end we need to take care of. I think Ivan may be popping up a little bit later this evening on the TTNL network airwaves. Keeping It 100 will be live tomorrow night with the whole crew, where we'll be talking about all of this, obviously, and more coaching news. And now Vegas has thrown their name into the ring. They're doing the same thing. They are retaining their general manager. So we will see what that means for them and what unfolds there. Is that another destination potentially for Mike Vrabel in Vegas with his connection to Tom Brady? It's going to be very interesting. Obviously, BHL is in hibernation until next season, but Thursday night, Cars Keys will be back, 8 p.m. East. Cars and I will be on, obviously, talking about all this and maybe a little bit of look into the future with some stuff. But that being said, we're going to get out of here. It's the Bears, y'all. We'll see what this does. We got to have hope, right? We'll see who's going to be our new hope. We'll figure it out. Love you guys. See you soon. Bear down.